Association Livestream, where today the topic will be all about hospital consolidations. And for those of you who are not familiar with the jargon, it's really about these hospital acquisitions, and they have incredible effects on our ability to deliver care and on our markets, and we will be getting that into some detail here. If you're a doctor, you know what I'm talking about, and you will be interested in hearing some of the things that we've discovered and that we've been observing. And I'm happy to hear your opinions and your feedback. If you're a patient, listen up, because this is affecting your ability to access the care that you want. But first, let me thank you all for being here tonight at our usual time of 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, so that we can have an opportunity to talk to our East Coast guys, everybody in between, and everybody over in California who is probably getting out of work at about this time and getting to write notes. Today we are being seen for the first time on YouTube, I think. I'm dying to find out if this is working out. If it isn't, or if it is, please give us an email at US Medical Association. That is US Medical ASSN, ASSN, at gmail.com. US Medical ASSN at gmail.com. Love to hear your feedback. Love to engage each and every one of you. If you can figure out how our chat is working, go ahead and approach us that way as well. Anyway, so look, this issue about hospital consolidations. What is this? What is this all about? Well, I don't know about you all, but in a lot of the markets that I've been looking at, the number of hospitals seems to be shrinking. Now, the buildings may be about the same, but the companies that provide the hospital services seem to be diminishing in number. Instead of having 5 competing hospital corporations, you have 3 hospitals from one corporation competing with 2 from another. And of course, somewhere in there, you have the state-run, tax subsidized public hospital, so-called public hospital, that is in the fray for competition. So JAMA Surgery, one of my favorite journals, JAMA Surgery, came out with an article by Dr. Christopher Childers. It's an opinion piece, and he asked the question, should we care about hospital consolidation? Now, he's talking to doctors. So the question to the doctors is, should we care about a hospital consolidation? But the question equally applies to the patient. So if you're not a physician and you're watching us tonight, pay attention. This stuff really affects all of us together. So his summary commentary goes something like this. Competition amongst businesses is thought to benefit the consumer. With the recent surge in hospital mergers, there is a concern that competition is being stifled and that costs may increase without a concomitant improvement in quality. Using 4 years of medical data, Medicare data, Thuma et al. Compared surgical outcomes. They focused on high-risk elective procedures. Now, they mentioned that 80% of these so-called high-risk medical procedures were hip or knee replacement surgeries. So already the study is skewed. But nevertheless, they found mixed results, concluding that the hospital market competition was not consistently associated with improved results. The implication being, look, it's not that big a deal. If the hospitals come together and they decide to network with 62 hospitals in one region, and they can get better pricing that way and control healthcare throughout those franchises that they've developed, well, then so be it, because it's not affecting medical care. Let's look a little bit. I got some opinions about this, and I think they're probably shared by most of the physicians who are watching this, and they're noticed, maybe not thought about by a lot of the non-physicians who may be watching today. But nevertheless, it's a very important trend that it has strong implications on how you can access care. So let's look just summarily at this Thuma article. Thuma published an article called outcomes for high-risk surgical procedures across high and low competition hospital markets. So essentially, they took Medicare data from 2016 to 2018, 3 years, right? 2 years, but you include the end year, and it's actually a three-year study. And they were looked at people with 65 years or older, and these folks underwent 1 of 10 high-risk procedures, which included carotid endarterectomies, mitral valve repairs, open aortic aneurysm repairs, lung resection, esophagectomy, pancreatectomy, rectal resections, hip replacement, knee replacement, and bariatric surgery. And they compared the outcomes between these areas where there are a lot of hospitals were in competition, a town with 3 different hospitals competing against each other and for the market, and perhaps another market where there's 1 or 2 hospitals. And the answer was they really didn't find much of a difference in outcome. See, but that's not the problem. That's not what we're contesting. That's not what we're concerned about. I am sure that a large chain of hospitals, if appropriately run, especially, by the way, if doctors are in the mix on leadership, if doctors maybe even own the hospital, they can control the way they do business in such a way to provide a great product. By a great product, I am simply talking about you go to the hospital, you take great care, and you're getting taken care of greatly, and you go home and you continue with your recovery. I'm not doubting that a 1 or 2 hospital chain versus a 60 hospital chain can do that. Now, I know that some of us have had differing experiences. I've been in both sides of those mixes, and I can tell you I myself have had different experiences, but I'm not quite sure that I'm able to extrapolate that experience that I've had, good or bad, on that hospital to the system, meaning to whether hospitals need to be consolidated and only have 1 or 2 hospitals in a market versus high competition areas to provide the better care. Can't make that conclusion. But that's not the concern. The concern is really that they're taking us with them. They're taking the doctors with them. Now, this is what our patients have seen. We have experienced it. We felt it. It's very frustrating. It's very restrictive to the type of care that we can deliver. But the patients see it. How do the patients see it? They see the advertisements. Come to Hospital X, where we have the best doctors who perform whatever. Need orthopedics? Come to Hospital Y. The greatest hospital in cardiac surgery. I'll find you some sort of national review that ranks us number 1 in cardiac. You've seen these. And so this is what patients see, and so they go to the hospital and they go to the hospital looking for the doctor instead of going to the doctor looking for the care. That's, in a nutshell, what the problem is. Now, they're taking us down with them in more than that way. It's actually a lot more palpable. They're hiring the doctors. So Hospital X decides that it's going to get a better handle on the market by hiring a bunch of doctors that will feed them. And so you may have moved into your community, and I can talk about Venice, Florida. When I first moved into Venice, Florida, the hospital, which is now defunct, Venice Regional, went by a number of other names, tragically defunct. That hospital had like 3 or 4 private doctors. Private doctors meaning doctors who ran their clinics in their office, and they were taking care of their patients in the office. And yes, they would come to the hospital and take care of the patients in the hospital. That's what that's what Venice Regional had. It was about 3. By the time it went defunct, which is about 2022, a year ago, they had 77 doctors. They went from hiring 3 doctors to hiring 77 doctors. So what does that do for the patient? Well, all of a sudden, all those doctors that you had as the patient, all those doctors that you had that you were able to call and take care of, be taken care of by them, who, by the way, was probably unsubstitutable. You had a doctor that you developed a great relationship with. You liked that doctor. The doctor was, you went to that doctor's office. First of all, was that doctor's name on the door that you saw? Paul Smith, MD, general surgery. Paul Smith, MD, family practice. Whatever the case it may be, his name or her name was on the door, and you go there and you were going to see Paul Smith. Now, they hire 77 doctors. They hire 77 doctors, and they feed them. They just advertise for them everywhere. There's billboards and TV ads. What private doctor can compete with TV ad, with a good TV ad by the Cleveland Clinic? Which doctor? Which private single or two-man group can compete with that? Which private doctor can compete with all the billboards they put up? The answer is they can't. And so what ends up happening is these doctors can't compete, and so they start getting hired by the hospital. So it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy that it no longer is about 3 or 4 doctors being owned, because we want to be able to have, doctors out there representing our community. We're trying to make things better for those doctors. It's no longer about that. It's about running everybody else out of the market. And so what you end up seeing is these behemoths of 77 doctors. You, the patient, you don't even know which doctor you're going to see that day. You show up, you see Dr. X, they promise you that you'll keep the relationship with that doctor. But one day you see Dr. X, sometimes you see somebody else who's really not a doctor but identifies himself as a doctor, but he's really not. And how would you know the difference? Oh, no, but he's a doctor, a PhD doctor. But we're in a clinical setting. That's not really what I don't want to know, that you have a PhD in history. Okay, a PhD in healthcare in some sort of PA degree or nurse practitioner degree. I want to know that you're the actual doctor. You're coming into my room to examine me, identifying yourself as doctor, PhD doctor, not MD doctor. I don't know you. I don't know the difference. And yet here you are substituting them for my care. So that personal approach, that incredible relationship that you had with your doctor dissipates because of corporate America. Because these massive hospitals, these massive corporations want to control your doctor. It's no longer personal. It's now corporate. The hospital thinks that the hospital now loses the need to maintain the quality, because up until that point, the whole goal of the hospital was to attract the doctor to bring his or her patients over into the hospital and have them taken care of at that facility. We will make sure your patient gets taken care of. Not anymore. I got 70 doctors that are going to feed me patients. What's it matter? And by the way, if you try to compete against me, I'll try to run you out of business. That's what's going on. That's why this hospital consolidation thing is so important. It's not so important about maybe the quality of care measures, how many complications there were, whether the patient got seen in a timely manner. That may not be it. And it may not be captured in these studies. What's really, what this is all about is about the centralization of care into the hands of a few. And the disempowerment of you as the patient and you as the doctor of the care you're going to receive. That's what this is about. And if we can regulate those pesky doctors who have such great ideas or different ideas about how patients should be treated, we can regulate them into oblivion, then all the more for it. They're all the more for it. So where are we on this? The physician lobby, the physician representatives, they're nowhere to be seen. Why are they nowhere to be seen? I encourage you to come see yesterday's video on our organizations that publish all these supporting materials for the practice of medicine and making millions of dollars while doing it, and no longer being beholden to the doctors. They're nowhere to be seen. Yeah, they'll say they'll play lip service, but you won't see somebody saying, no, absolutely not. We will not be signing on to your healthcare idea, Congressman. unless the right of the doctor and the right of the patient to be taken care of in a fashion that the patient and the doctor desire is protected. That's what this article doesn't tell you about. That's what the problem is with healthcare. I haven't even started talking about public hospitals. There's a lot of stuff where people are making these wonderful arguments about how wonderful the public hospital is because they're public. They're not there for profit. I got news for you. They are there for profit. Now, they may not show the profit on their books, but they are there for profits. And what's worse is they have, on the average, a 5 to 10% overhead advantage on the competing hospitals. So if you're running a private hospital and you're trying to do your thing, and your competitor can, by fiat, raise $500 million for their new building that they're going to put across the street from you, and by the way, they've got the inside lane with the county board, guess what's going to happen to your hospital? And that's exactly what's happening here. I said Venice Regional was now defunct. Venice Regional went down due to a lot of things, a lot of errors that they did. And they undervalued their doctors. They undervalued their referral service. And they suffered for it, and eventually, tragically, because this was a hospital. This hospital I keep referring to you in my community was truly built by the people of the community. They thought they needed a hospital back in the 1940s. They took out a bond and they bought an apartment building and they turned it into a hospital, and there it stood for about 60 years until corporate America came in and ran it out of business. Why did they run it out of business? They ran it out of business because the director of the hospital had this philosophy that doctors were now dispensable. They were replaceable. If the doctor argues against you, don't worry about it. We'll hire somebody else, get him off the staff. Except it didn't work in a small community like ours, and ultimately they went down the tubes. But another very important pressure that they felt is the public hospital was taxing the citizens to build facilities right across the street from where the doctors were already practicing, or very nearby the urgent care centers where there were private urgent care centers trying to stay afloat by attracting patients, and these people were building them right across the street using taxpayer dollars that, by the way, the doctors themselves who were competing against them had to pay. How would you like, this is what happens, how would you like to have to pay, I don't know, a millage tax, send that to the government so that the government can compete against you and run you out of business? This is what's happening with healthcare today. And because of that, what is the consequence to the patient? You have, number one, you have less control of the care you're going to be taking, that is going to be given to you. Your doctor now has to answer to some administrator. The buck doesn't stop with your doctor. It looks like he stops with your doctor, but he doesn't, because your doctor has to answer to the CEO of the outpatient medical clinic, who then has to answer to the hospital's CEO. And they're going to force that doctor to run the type of healthcare that they see fit. If your doctor starts going into greater amounts of innovation, corporate is going to intervene, directly or indirectly. Through their policies, they're going to intervene. And the other way they're going to do it is, you're seeing it already. I'm sure that a lot of you patients are seeing it. You want to see Mary O'Hara, Dr. Mary O'Hara. She is the best vascular surgeon in town. But Mary O'Hara is hired by Hospital Y. And your doctor is in Hospital X. And you belong to Hospital X ACO. That doctor, Hospital X, has their own guy, and he's a new guy, and he's going to be great maybe someday, or maybe he's not. Maybe he's somebody you don't trust. Maybe you don't like him. Whatever. You want to see Mary O'Hara. You don't want to see this guy. You can't. Or at least they're going to make it as difficult as possible for you to access Mary O'Hara. So now you have the same community with great care, and the care is being divided by these forces that are trying to consolidate. They're forming these either monopolies or oligopolies. One of the most important little pieces of information here is not about the review of the article and the materials and the opinion of Dr. Christopher, whatever his name was. Sorry, I apologize. I should remember his name. And I will take a moment to make sure that I do. Dr. Christopher Childers. I apologize, Dr. Childers. I'm sure that you took a lot of work in writing this article. But the point is that a lot of the issues are not even those that are mentioned here. What's mentioned here that Dr. Childers glosses over is that, actually it wasn't Dr. Childers, it was Dr. Thuma who mentioned this. She glossed it over too. And that is that over 90% of markets are in low competition markets. 90% of hospitals are in low competition markets. 90% of your communities are communities where you really don't have a choice. Where if you don't like one hospital, you can go to the other one. Where if you don't like one group of doctors because they're all owned by the one hospital, you can't go to the other. That's not America, ladies and gentlemen. That's not the free market. That's not competition. That's not what's best for healthcare. That's oppression. That's monopoly, or at worst, or at best, oligopoly. It's not a free market system. So the patients are seeing this too. So you ask me, Dr. Childers, you ask all of us, should we care about hospital consolidation? The answer is absolutely. Not for the reason you cite in this article, but for the implications that it has to our abilities to access care, for our abilities to maintain control of our profession, and for our abilities to craft the treatment plan that's best for our patients. My name is Dr. Julio Gonzalez. I thank you so much for listening and watching today at the United States Medical Association live stream. We are now on Twitter and YouTube. That's competition right there. There's two ways to access us, which improves your access or your ability to get to us. Please feel free to follow those channels. Follow us on Twitter. If you're a doctor, please join us at the United States Medical Association by going to the UnitedStatesMedicalAssociation.org. We are fighting to keep these things from swallowing up our profession. Some of you say it's too late. Some of you say that the odds are dramatically against us. Okay. But it will be too late if we don't start now, and it will be dramatically against us, permanently against us, if we don't do something about it. And the United States Medical Association, as I've been telling you now for our 3 podcasts, is the organization through which we can accomplish many things together if we build it. If we build it. My name is Dr. Julio Gonzalez. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great night.